The grievance study gang has struck again. These, you may remember, are the impish liberal academics who decided to submit articles filled with absurd leftist nonsense to academic journals to see if the journals could tell the difference between fake articles filled with absurd leftist nonsense and the real articles filled with absurd leftist nonsense they usually publish. And no, they couldn't. The academic journals accepted articles on subjects like dog rape culture, fat bodybuilding, and whether it's okay to put white male students in chains to help them overcome their sense of comfort. I am not making this up. But in what is perhaps their masterpiece, prankster academics James Lindsay, Peter Boghossian, and Helen Pluckrose submitted a rewritten section of Adolf Hitler's psychopathic screed Mein Kampf to one of the top feminist journals in the country, Ophelia, and Ophelia accepted it. Ophelia editor Shriki Virago defended her decision to run Hitler's piece, saying, quote, "You know, it seems we got this Hitler fellow all wrong. When conservatives demanded liberty for all and limits on government power, we used to call them Hitler because we thought that's what Hitler believed. But it turns out Hitler wasn't such a bad fellow after all, and he wanted to use victim ideology to oppress people just like we do. In fact, we would invite Mr. Hitler to speak at our next feminist conference if it weren't for the fact he's a dead white male, which could prejudice some feminists against his otherwise palatable views." So, I guess some other feminists will have to stand in for Hitler, pounding the podium and screaming hate-filled inanities, which will at least prove that a woman can do that just as well as any man, unquote. And okay, I did make that quote up, but the rest of the story is totally true. And while you might think accepting an article by Hitler would give the girls at Ophelia second thoughts about their own philosophy, not at all. To do that would be to accept anti-feminist values, like reason and decency. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shape, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
All right, we're back. We hardly left. It was a non-Klavanless weekend. It was a Klavanless-less weekend, or less Klavanless. I don't know. We all those things were out there. We had Another Kingdom season 2 debuted for everybody. Everybody can get the first 2 episodes of season 2, and the next chapter of Another Kingdom, performed by the lovely and talented Michael Knowles, will come out today for subscribers. You get exclusive access to episode 3. It's entitled The Beast. If you're not a subscriber, you won't be able to watch new episodes of season 2 until Friday. So what are you waiting for? It is time to subscribe. Go to dailywire.com and subscribe to watch the first and second seasons of Another Kingdom. It really is good. The Gosnell movie did pretty well. It's certainly the top independent picture in the country. I'm not sure whether it's come in the top 10, but 11, 12, something like that, but certainly the top independent picture. And audiences were giving it good reaction. It was funny to see it getting an audience reaction on Rotten Tomatoes of 100% compared to my critical response to One Missed Call, which is still at 0%. So I swing back and forth a lot. I'm bipolar. All right, now we have to talk about Hair Club, and many of you have said to me, you don't think I am the best representative of Hair Club, but think of me like the severed head that's stuck on a pike that warns you not to come into the village or this will happen to you. Don't let this happen to you. Go to Hair Club, because whether you're looking to revitalize the growth of your own hair or to learn more about the latest proven methods for hair replacement or restoration, Hair Club's professionally trained stylists, hair health experts, and consultants will craft a personalized solution to ensure you feel your best and get the most out of your hair. See for yourself just how powerful great hair can be. Not a lot of people know this, but Knowles and I are the same age. The only difference between the way we look is that he kept his hair. So go to hairclub.com/Klavan today for a free hair analysis and a free take-home hair kit, all valued over $300. That's hairclub.com/Klavan for a free hair analysis and free hair care kit. Experience your hair and your life at its best only with Hair Club. I'm certain you will love the club. Just call them up and say to them, how do you spell Klavan? It's Klavan. Get your hair now. Don't let this happen to you. Get your hair now. All right. Well, before we start talking about the news, we have to talk about the non-news, which is Elizabeth Warren has announced she is actually less Indian than everybody else in America. I mean, I went to 23andMe and had my DNA done, and I think I have more. I think it was Chaim, the Chappaqua, the Trippaqua, whatever it was that I'm related to. But Elizabeth Warren is, Trump challenged her to test her DNA, said he'd give $1 million to charity if she tested her DNA and proved that she was actually an Indian as she has pretended to be. And she got this thing, I don't know, what was it? It was like it was 0%. The test says she was 0% to 1.6% American Indian, which I think most Americans are 1.8% or something like that, American Indian. So she is proved. I now want her to go by her native name, Walks Like a Duck, because if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck, and she's white. It's like, hey, nothing wrong with being white. I like white people. Some of my best friends are white people. Elizabeth, take it easy. It's fine. The other thing is, of course, is the violence. The violence over the weekend from the left, mostly from the left, has been it just continues, and it's getting worse, and it's getting uglier, and they're threatening to do worse. On Friday, the Metropolitan Republican Club in Manhattan was attacked. It houses the Manhattan Republican Party and the New York City regional office of the New York Republican Party. It was vandalized, including broken windows, spray-painted anarchist symbols. And the criminal group that did the damage left a note. They were angry that Gavin McInnes was going to talk to them. If that's your worst, if Gavin McInnes is your worst nightmare, like you have nothing to be afraid of. They left a note. Our attack is merely a beginning. We are not passive, we are not civil, and we will not apologize. Those of good conscience and clear mind know this state of oppression cannot remain. I know you're all feeling very oppressed out there. The U.S. fascist political system is one of the most savage institutions in history, and we will combat it relentlessly until all are free of American barbarism. These guys have windows in their apartment. Can they look outside and see that everything's going great? Is that a problem for them? Here's a montage of all the Democrat politicians denouncing the attack. Yeah, that was it. That was the whole montage. So, yeah, you're not hearing it, because this is the problem. But then in Portland, there was more violence. The Antifa people. I want to go back and get one of our great, maybe Cynthia, one of our great artists back there, to do a cartoon for me of a guy in a black mask with a label Antifa on his shirt, and then a guy in a white hood with anti-claw on his shirt. Because, just because you say you're anti-something doesn't mean you're not the thing. So there's fascists who call themselves anti-fascists are out in the streets of Portland, terrorizing people, yelling at people, yelling racist things at white people. So the Patriot Prayer Rally was holding a patriotic prayer rally. Now, Let's be fair here. They had clubs too. Normally when I pray, I leave my club at home. I mean, just saying, I don't bring my club to my, it's like you say don't bring a knife to a gunfight. I don't usually bring my club to a prayer meeting. So they were looking for trouble too. But it really does look from the videos. You can just play the videos in the background so people can see. It really does look from the videos that the Antifa people started it by pepper spraying some of the prayer patriot people. They set a flag on fire. They set a flag on fire, which was rescued. But then it just became, after the pepper spray was sprayed, it just became a genuine Donnybrook with people punching each other's lights out. This is what's happening. And of course, the problem is not the thugs on the street. There aren't enough of them to really cause problems. The problem is the leadership of the Democratic Party not denouncing the thugs because they're afraid of losing their support. Everybody makes fun of Donald Trump when he was asked to denounce the Klan, and he didn't denounce the Klan because he was afraid of losing votes. That was wrong. Trump was wrong to do that. Now the Democrats have fallen in line, and they are not denouncing these people, and it is just disgusting. And the problem that they have is the Democrat Party has drifted left. The Democrat Party has drifted left, and leftism is inherently violent. Remember, the debate between the left and right is not an equal debate. It is not one person saying we want this, this, and this in a free America, and the other people saying we want this, this, and that in a free America. One side is saying we want a free America with different opinions. People can speak. People can talk about it. Debate things, compromise, go forward. That's the right. On the left, they want to force you to do what they want you to do. And so That's the first reason the left is inherently violent. The left is inherently violent because it wants the power to force you to do and think and say what it wants you to do, think, and say. And if you have government, if you're in the government, you don't have to take to the streets with clubs if you're in the government, because you have the police force, you have the force of government. Nobody talks about the fact, I talk about it, but not that many people talk about the fact that when you pay taxes, you are paying on threat of violence. You are paying so that the police do not show up with their guns and take you away, because you cannot fight the violence of the state. The state has a monopoly on true violence and can take you away if you don't pay your taxes. When they're out of government, they have to do it through terror, and they do it by taking to the streets. And if you don't think the establishment left is in on this, listen to Bernie Sanders when he is talking to Jake Tapper, and Jake Tapper asks him about whether or not he's going to denounce this violence. This is cut number 8.
Now, Jake, I don't think it's a question of going high or going low. I think it's a question of telling the truth. And the truth is that you have a president who lies all of the time, a pathological liar. I don't think that's what the American people want. You have a Republican leadership in the House and the Senate that came within one vote of throwing 32 million people off of the health insurance they currently have. You have leadership there in the House and the Senate that wants to do away with the pre-existing protections that people have in this country so they can get health insurance when you have cancer or heart disease. You have leadership in the House and Senate led by the president that provided massive tax breaks for the wealthiest people in this country over a 10-year period. 83% of the benefits go to the top 1%. You have a president and Republican leadership who supported a budget which would have cut Medicaid by $1 trillion, devastating for the elderly people.
Now, take out the emotions, take out all the emotional language about devastating for the American people and cancer and take out all of that. What he's talking about is taking your money. He's not talking, remember, they don't have any money. The government doesn't have any money. They just take your money that you earn. You go out and you earn money to support your health care, to pay for your health care. You go out and earn money to pay for the things that you want. Bernie Sanders thinks he should be allowed to spend that money. They always talk about it, and you can hear Ocasio-Cortez doing the same thing, talking about it'll save America money. It won't save you money. It's not America's money. It's your money. You earned it. You worked for it. That's not greed. It is not greed to want the things you work for. It is greed to take them away, to spend them on other things, hoping that it will buy your votes. And by the way, they're always talking about the middle class. Remember, under socialism, the middle class disappears and all you have are the poor and the rich. Why? Because you can't tax the rich, because they are the ones who create all the wealth. So you cannot tax them, so they get away scot-free. You can't tax the poor because they don't have any money. You wind up taxing the people. You wind up calling people rich if they make more money than most people, but that's really the middle class. You destroy the middle class. So that's why there is no middle class under socialism, only the very poor and the very rich. Go up to San Francisco, take a look, and you'll see what it's like up there. So that's number one. The reason they need violence is because they want to force you to do things, and violence is how you force people to do them, things that they don't want to do. Number two, they have been hiding in safe spaces. They own every means of communication in America except the ones that we have taken back as this kind of like little revolutionary force popping up from behind rocks. We have a voice now on the internet we didn't have. We have a voice on podcasts. We have Fox News. But mostly they own all of the means of communication, including the Academy, Hollywood, and the news business. And so they never have to debate. They never have to debate. In the New York Post, Carol Markowitz writes, she says, what's behind the recent spread of outraged mobs on U.S. streets, wild-eyed and throwing violent fits because their favored political outcome didn't happen? How did so many Americans give up on resolving disagreements through discussion and turn the fact that a disagreement exists into an excuse for a tantrum? Campuses started setting up safe spaces well before 2015 when the news hit our media. College students were literally taking shelter from the possibility of hearing opinions they might disagree with. And this comes from a news media, an academy, Hollywood, defining the left as the antidote to hatred, not as the left as one side and the right as another, two people having a negotiation, because they lose that argument. They lose the argument. The argument is, do you want us to force everyone to believe what we believe, or do you want them to be free? Everybody would say, we want you to be free. But if they say yes, but on that freedom's just it's a dog whistle for racism. It's a dog whistle for sexism, for anti-homosexual sexual hate, for anti-Islamic hate. That's the way they debate. So if there's just them and hatred, you are justified in being violent. And the biggest safe space the media, the biggest safe space the left has is the media. And it is the media that contributes to this violence by taking one side. I have got to play this cut of Stephanie Ruhle, and obviously she's a biased reporter, biased commentator. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But listen to her absolute wonder and dismay at the fact that this Kavanaugh confirmation, a confirmation in which the left demanded that due process be put aside, that the presumption of innocence be put aside, that violence against senators screaming at them, tormenting them, chasing them out of restaurants, cornering them in elevators, that was okay, that didn't play well with the American people. She's shocked. She's absolutely stunned. Listen to her.
There was so much talk, or there is so much talk about the blue wave. When we all went through the Kavanaugh experience in the last few weeks, many people said this is going to drive more Democrats to go out and vote. But if you actually look at the polls, they've tightened. They've tightened. This Kavanaugh situation has hurt Democrats in the way that they handled it. We knew that Democrats were excited to vote before. We know through the Kavanaugh confirmation now a lot more Republicans are excited to vote. One of the things Democrats have been pushing is they're sort of the moral leaders, and they have been pointing the finger at Republicans. And something sort of got muzzled in the last few weeks, that when you sit down with even a centrist and you talk about the Kavanaugh confirmation, whether it's my feelings or not, they're quickly saying it's not just dirty politics on one side and Merrick Garland on one side, the way Mitch McConnell handled it. More and more people are saying they don't like the way Democrats handled it.
She's shocked even when you say this to centrists. They don't like riots and violence and intimidation and getting rid of due process. I love the fact that she says we keep telling them that we're the moral voice, and yet they turn away. What could possibly be wrong? If she were not in her safe space, if she ever got out of her offices, which I'm sure are in New York, if she ever went out and talked to people, just spent some time with them, she would find that Americans, so help me, have a much, much more nuanced, intelligent, insightful view of what's going on than anybody on television, anybody on cable news. They are much more black and white than most of the people you meet out in the country. They'll tell you that Trump does things they don't like. They'll tell you all of that stuff. But of course rioting doesn't play, but she doesn't know it. There was a wonderful exchange on 60 Minutes. Trump was on with Leslie Stahl, where he starts to talk about the media. Listen to Leslie Stahl. She does not want to hear it. And he finally just shuts her down. It's really funny. Cut number 4.
The other thing I've really learned is I never knew how dishonest the media was. I really mean it. I'm not saying that as a soundbite. I never knew how dishonest.
I'm going to change the subject again.
Well, no, but even the way you asked me a question, like about separation.
Yeah.
When I say Obama did it, you don't want to talk about it.
No.
When I say I did it, let's make a big deal.
I'm going to run your answer, but you did it 4 times.
I'm just telling you that you treated me much differently on the subject.
I disagree, but I don't want to have that fight with you.
Hey,
All
it's
right,
okay.
We're having another fight with you.
Leslie,
okay.
it's okay. In the meantime, I'm president and you're not.
President, and you are not. And that, of course, is what is driving them insane, that nobody is paying attention to them. This Kavanaugh thing, how hard did they sell this Kavanaugh thing, that this was an injustice to all women, to 50% of the country? It was an injustice, had nothing to do with all women. It had to do with one man being accused of one thing by one person with no corroborating evidence. That's what the story was about. But they didn't report that story. They reported the story about women, WOMYN. You know, it's everybody. Everybody represents everybody because it's groupthink, and they can't believe people didn't buy it. And meanwhile, Trump's popularity has taken an uptick. All right, so that's 2 reasons that violence is inherent to the left. One is leftism is by philosophy, it is essentially force. Leftism is force. And if you don't have the force of the government, which disguises the force by diffusing it into all the power that government has, if you don't have that force, then you got to use it with a stick and a mask on the streets and vandalism and attacking people and pepper spray. It's the same force, but it's just concentrated because you do not have it diffused into the government. And the second thing is that they are not used to debating because they've taken over the means of communication, so they don't have to debate. So they've convinced themselves that this is a moral holy war and they're on one side and we're on the other, which simply isn't true. And the third thing, and maybe the worst of it, is they are racist. Leftism is racist. That does not mean that there are no racists on the right. I've said this repeatedly. Of course, there are racists everywhere. There are people who look at the world in this simplistic way. If they get mugged by a black guy, all black guys are criminals. If they don't like what a white woman does, all white women are bad. But leftism is racism because it is based on setting interest groups up against each other. It is not based on the melting pot, is not based on bringing us together. That was the other thing that Leslie Stahl talked about. I just have to play this cut because it actually exemplifies what Trump was saying. It's cut number 1. She talks about a divided country as if it weren't Obama, and he tells her it was. She will not listen. Listen to this.
I think that what's going to happen, I think the economy is bringing people together. It was very polarized under President Obama, unbelievably polarized under President Obama. I can see the country uniting. I can see it. We have people, Democrats, who behaved horribly during the Judge Kavanaugh. You know what I'm saying.
But when you
during
won
the
that,
hearings for the Supreme Court, we had senators that behaved horribly.
but when you won, you won. No one is going to argue with that.
I won.
You won. And then after you won, instead of saying, oh, let's all come together, this is wonderful, let's heal all of this, you come out and bash the Democrats.
Well, I bashed their attitude. I bashed their statements.
But why not try to bring us
together? Because they were so
together?
unfair to Judge Kavanaugh. I've never seen anything like it.
Why not try to, we need to be healed. We need.
I don't think they want to heal yet, I'll be honest.
Well, you don't want to heal yet.
I saw Hillary Clinton made a really nasty statement. I don't think they want to be healed. I do want to heal.
I'm not talking about Democrat. I'm talking about the country.
The thing is, when Obama was in office, nobody ever talked about the fact that he was dividing the country. Nobody in the mainstream media ever talked about it, and he ripped the country in half. Obama did that. I talk to liberals. I try to explain to them what he looked like to us, what he sounded like to us. They cannot hear it because they look at everything according to race, because that is the way to divide the country. Listen to some more of the note that was left on the vandalized Republican headquarters in New York. The U.S. government has established concentration camps around the country for Latino people. In what world? In what world? You know, people breaking the law are being punished and detained for breaking the law. They have shamelessly murdered black people. On what planet? Where is this happening? It's happening all in their imagination. It continues. The U.S. government continues its war machine that has slaughtered Muslim people with impunity for decades. That's what every president does. That's what every soldier in America does. They wake up and say, let me kill some Muslim people. It's like there's a war going on, a terrorist faction of the Muslim world, a huge terrorist faction of the Muslim world has been trying to establish a caliphate in the Middle East. We have been fighting them. The so-called land of the free leads the world in incarceration rates per capita because of the high crime. Anyway, they look at everything in terms of race, so they're angry. Racism leads to violence. Racism is hatred. The latest one they have is white women. Here's Michelle Bernard at MSNBC on why white women just won't vote the way she wants them to.
Rebecca Traister, I believe, has a new book out. And one of the things that she talks about as a white woman is that the belief that white women have always gained power through the proximal the proximity that they have to white males, to their husbands, and they vote in the same way that their husbands do because it always and somehow favors them and helps them politically, despite what's happening in the country. And I just want to finish my statement. I want to finish my statement, please. I'd like to finish my statement, and the statement that I am making is, I would like to finish my statement, and the statement that I am making is, I do not see any reason for Democrats to believe that after the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, we are going to see a flood of white women, particularly Republican, red state feminists, come out and vote for Democrats.
God, flood of white women. I had a dream like that once. It was like, it's embarrassing. I don't want to talk about it. But, you know, Kyle Smith, writing at National Review, talks about how white women has become a disparaging term. And he quotes, The New York Times, white women benefit from patriarchy by trading on their whiteness to monopolize resources for mutual gain. From The New Yorker, despite the enduring legacy of testimony by black women, white women have often played the protagonists in the history of sexual violence, and black women have been relegated to the supporting cast. And at NBC News, white women who voted for Trump clearly have no issue with the president's openly misogynistic behavior, his demeaning of female reporters, and his mocking of Christine Blasey Ford. So white women, you are the latest. You know, let me end this. Let me put it to you this way. A woman won the Nobel Prize she was a Yazidi woman. Let me make sure. Nadia Murad won the Nobel Prize along with Denis Mukwege for fighting against sexual violence during wartime. Sexual violence in wartime it's a very hard thing to deal with because it may be inherent to war for men to then rape, and rape may be inherent to war. They don't know how to deal with it. It's just when people are reduced to the level that war reduces people to, when you're in the midst of this violence, rape occurs, rape happens. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. But the thing is, the Yazidis were purposely targeted for extinction by ISIS. And one of the ways they targeted them was by taking the women, selling them into slavery, making sure they got pregnant with ISIS men, with ISIS children. And Nadia Murad is a victim of this, but also has won the Nobel Prize. How many people knew that? How many people listening to this knew that? How many people who listened to the mainstream media knew that Nadia Murad? Because they're racist. The left is racist. They don't want to say. It's the only time when violence against women matters is when they can use it to get power. That's the only time it matters. Listen, I want to play George Clooney's wife, Amal Clooney, who was talking at the UN about Nadia Murad. And the reason I'm playing her is not because she's a celebrity, it's because she speaks English and Nadia Murad doesn't. And so I know a lot of people are just listening to this so you can understand what she's saying. Listen to what happened, what ISIS did to Nadia Murad and thousands of Yazidi women.
Nadia was one of 6,700 Yazidis taken by ISIS 2 summers ago to be sold in markets and on Facebook, sometimes for as little as $20. Nadia's mother was one of 80 older women who were executed and buried in an unmarked grave. Her brothers, part of a group of 600 who were murdered in a single day. Make no mistake, what Nadia has told us about is genocide. And genocide doesn't happen by accident. You have to plan it. Before the genocide began 2 years ago, the ISIS Research and Fatwa Department studied the Yazidis and concluded that, as a Kurdish-speaking group that did not have a holy book, they were non-believers whose enslavement was a, quote, firmly established aspect of the Sharia.
Firmly established aspect of the Sharia. Know who got rid of ISIS? Yeah, Donald Trump. How about giving him a Nobel Prize? That would be interesting. That would make them. But of course, none of this stuff, as I've said before, none of this is about what it's about. It's always about the power. It goes back to the power. It goes back to the force. And that's why the left is violent. When I say that, I wouldn't pick on the left if there were just a riot in Portland, some bad guys in Portland. That's happened before. What is new is the silence of the Democrats, the silence of the Democrats as this stuff is going on, because it's who they are. It's who they have drifted to the left, and that left-wing philosophy is inherently violent. It is inherently an act of force. Socialism is an act of force. Everything except freedom is an act of force, right? Under capitalism, you make something, I want to buy it, I freely give you my money, you freely give me what you made. That is freedom. That's not force. It is force when you have to take money away from people that they earned and give it to others. That is the core, essential philosophy of leftism. It is inherently violent. And now, because they haven't got the handles of power, thank God, that violence is taking to the streets. And let's play that montage of left-wing Democrat politicians denouncing it once again. Let's play the whole thing this time. Yeah, there it is. That was it. So, it is inherent in their philosophy. I'll see you again tomorrow. Listen to Another Kingdom. Anybody can listen to the first and second episodes. The third episode is now out for subscribers of dailywire.com. So subscribe while you're listening. You could do everything at once. I'm Andrew Klavan. This is The Andrew Klavan Show.
The Andrew Klavan Show is produced by Robert Sterling.